In just over 1 month's time, beginning the weekend of September 9th, the center of the Disney News universe is going to emanate from the Anaheim Convention Center for the ultimate Disney fan event known as D23 Expo. And so let's dive into some predictions and rumors about what to expect to be announced for the Disney parks up next. Hi there Waltineers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and be sure to subscribe down below if you're new to the channel and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. As you see, I'm going to be covering D23 Expo extensively here on the channel in September. But in actual fact, that coverage begins today with this predictions video talking about what to expect in terms of new Disney park announcements at D23 Expo. Although this time around it's a bit of an odd one, as usually leading into D23 Expo we would have heard some insider rumours and rumblings about what to expect. Now that might be because Disney doesn't have much planned. However, as ever the optimist, I do think that Disney has some big announcements in store despite the reduction in capital expenditure for the Disney parks in recent years, as Disney know that this is an unmissable opportunity to announce a few projects now that will generate a ton of hype, but then won't have to open for another 3 to 4 years. And then another factor that's playing into all of this is that given the downsizing of Imagineering during the pandemic, it means that there are fewer points of contact for things to potentially leak out as well. So a lot of this is going to be concluded by logical deductions with supporting evidence for the predictions. But with that being said, let's begin with what we know for definite. As this year's D23 Expo is a much bigger deal than usual, as not only is it the first D23 Expo to take place in over 3 years, as normally this is a biennial event that happens every 2 years, but more importantly, it has been heavily touted that D23 Expo will be the official kickoff to Disney 100, as next year the Walt Disney Company enters its 2nd century. And to celebrate this monumental milestone that few companies achieve, Disney is going to have a worldwide celebration called Disney's 100 Years of Wonder, or Disney 100 for short. Now of course, the company doesn't mark its formal 100th anniversary until October 16th, 2023, with that being the date in 1923 when Walt and Roy founded the Disney Brothers studio. But given the significance of this achievement, this will surely be a year-long celebration, if not longer. And it begins with Disney unveiling their extensive worldwide plans at D23 Expo. Now this celebration will leave no stone unturned, as it's going to touch every single aspect of the colossal Disney company. And unlike Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary, the history and heritage of the Walt Disney Company is going to be an integral part of these celebrations. As in addition to Walt Disney Archives hosting Disney 100, the exhibition in February 2023 from Philadelphia, the Disney parks and resorts all around the world will have all new daytime and nighttime offerings celebrating the illustrious 100-year history of Disney animation and entertainment. And it was speculated in the past that Disney World was to receive a new nighttime parade, which had supposedly been postponed until the 100th celebration of the company. So perhaps we'll see that concept now return. And given the recent naming schemes like Disney Harmonious and Disney Enchantment, expect the words wonder, wonderful and wondrous to feature heavily in the naming and branding of these offerings. Now every single D23 Expo, there have been dedicated expo pavilions for Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Disney+, Walt Disney Archives, and of course for Disney parks. But I wouldn't be surprised that given that this is the kickoff to Disney 100, that 100 Years of Wonder will probably also receive its own pavilion on the show floor as well. And whilst we're talking about the expo floor, we now know that the Disney Parks Pavilion will be officially known as the Wonderful World of Dreams. And as has become tradition for the past few expos, we should start to receive some Disney park news on the Thursday night or Friday morning of the expo, as Disney may allow the press access to the park's pavilion ahead of the doors officially opening. And as part of this pavilion, usually there's a few models of upcoming Disney park additions in the form of new lands, attractions and entertainment. However, this year it's hard to pin down exactly what might be the focal point of this pavilion, as in 2019 it was Epcot, 2017 it was Galaxy's Edge, and 2015 it was Pandora. and so usually what is showcased in model form as the focal point is something that has been previously announced. Therefore, following that criteria, the only thing on that level that has been previously announced is the Disneyland Forward proposal in March of 2021. That was just a preliminary proposal with some of the bluest of blue sky concept art accompanying it, just to give a rough approximation of the kind of development that Disneyland would like to seek approval for from the Anaheim community and City Council. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that this project might be a centerpiece for the Pavilion. Although erring on the side of caution, I think that Disney may just choose to have some smaller exhibits instead, as they have plenty to feature such as Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and maybe some models showing Mickey's Toontown in Disneyland, the Zootopia Land in Shanghai, the Frozen Land in Hong Kong Disney, Fantasy Springs in Tokyo, or the Walt Disney Studios Park expansion in Paris. Then, on Sunday at 10:30 AM, the Disney Parks Experience and Products Chairman Josh D'Amaro will take to the stage for an approximate 90-minute presentation where we're going to receive the majority of the big announcements. And this presentation is normally structured to have an ebb and flow from big headline-grabbing announcements of completely new projects unveiled for the first time to smaller updates on existing projects. And so let's begin with what seems to be pretty much a certainty at this point, and that is that it's highly likely that we're going to receive the opening date for the Tron Light Cycle Run roller coaster at the Magic Kingdom at D23 Expo. As with the project in its final stages, September would be the perfect time to announce the exact opening date, leaving then a 6 to 8 week buffer for the soft opening period of cast member previews and public previews to take place ahead of its grand opening weeks before the Christmas season begin. And also, sticking with the Magic Kingdom, considering the guest reaction to Disney Enchantment and the fact that it was only meant for the 50th anniversary celebration that now ends in March of 2023, potentially Disney may announce the return of an updated Happily Ever After as well that could have a special Disney 100 intro segment, as that would surely be an easy crowd-winning announcement. Then, in terms of Tiana's Bayou Adventure, it's incredibly doubtful that we're going to get a Splash Mountain closing date announced, as Disney will not want to risk a negative reaction in such a public setting. But I would say it's highly likely that there will be a segment on this project, and we're going to get more details and artwork, and maybe even a special sneak peek at some of the animatronics or technology that will be used within this attraction. And along those same lines of first looks into existing projects, I also expect that we'll get an update about Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at Disneyland, and probably a sneak peek at the new queue and ride changes, and perhaps maybe even the announcement of a new scene within the ride, which I covered last December when it was alluded to in the official permit filings. Now, before I get into some bold predictions for new project announcements, I also want to address the possibility of some previously cancelled or indefinitely postponed projects making their way back. As at D23 Expo in 2019, we saw projects such as the Mary Poppins attraction, the new Bay Lake Resort Reflections, and the Avengers Quinjet attraction all get officially announced to a lot of fanfare and buzz at the time, only to then fall into obscurity over the next couple of years. And despite it not being totally impossible to see these make a return, I do think this is highly unlikely. However, the one project that I think has the best chance of making a return is the previously announced revamp to Spaceship Earth that will centre the theme around the history of storytelling instead of communications. And the reason why I think that this is more likely to be re-announced is not just because it is the icon of the park and an essential part of the Epcot transformation, but also it's because the ride system is in desperate need of an extensive refurbishment some point in the coming years. And so it only makes sense to couple it with a revamp of the show scenes and story and generate a new round of hype for it all over again. Although at this point I've got to address the elephant in the room, as so much of this year's D23 Expo Disney Park announcements is predictably going to be viewed through the lens of how does this stack up against Epic Universe. Because with Universal constructing their third park in Orlando, many will be anticipating what will be Disney's response to the highly competitive threat on the horizon. However, it is highly unlikely that we are going to see Disney announce a fifth park to compete with Epic Universe's impending opening in 2025. As if Disney were exploring such an option, someone, somewhere, would have caught wind of it by now. And over the past decade, we have seen Disney's continued investment on a cyclical rotation, focusing on Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and now Epcot. However, this year, I think that Disney may announce a singular attraction project coming to each one of the 4 parks, as a way to combat Epic Universe by strengthening their existing portfolio ready in time for 2025. Therefore, with that being said, let's move on to some bold predictions for new project announcements. And the one that would be guaranteed to generate a lot of headlines, if announced, is something involving Encanto. As given the stellar streaming success and immense popularity of the movie, it seems likely that D23 Expo would be the perfect opportunity to make a big splash by announcing an Encanto attraction. And the evidence supporting this is that the creative force behind the movie's Billboard chart-topping soundtrack, Lin-Manuel Miranda, has said in an interview with The Wrap from February that he's spoken with Disney CEO Bob Chapek about there being a world in which the casita can live within a theme park environment. And then, later in an April interview with Insider.com, Miranda went on to further elaborate that he wants to see a ride made before making a movie sequel or TV show. And he even went as far as to say that the Imagineers are on it. Now that doesn't mean that this is going to be a certainty that it will be announced at D23 Expo, but I do think that Disney may strike while the iron is hot on this one, and announce an Encanto attraction early with a 3 to 4 year period to then construct and open it by late 2025. But here's another aspect of the prediction, as I don't think that this will just be an announcement of an Encanto attraction, but instead this could be the announcement of a brand new Columbia Pavilion at Epcot, with Encanto being used as the anchor attraction. And I know this sounds a bit out there, but maybe instead of using one of the existing expansion pads for a new build, considering the half-open status of a Morocco Pavilion, maybe Disney could reallocate that land to a Columbia Pavilion and build from the ground up in stages, as then they could construct a decent-sized trackless ride over at the back, sharing infrastructure with Ratatouille, whilst keeping the facade of Morocco intact for another year or so, then close and demolish the front of Morocco to then build a Colombian village for the entrance. And the positioning of this would also mean that Epcot could continue to only open parts of World Showcase in the morning up to France, as it would only need to extend a little bit further to include Encanto. But then, sticking with Epcot, there's still a missing piece to the Epcot transformation puzzle. And it's actually one that's been mentioned numerous times over the past 5 years as a possible D23 announcement contender. As you see, I think that this might just be the year that we see a Journey into Imagination with Figment revamp announced at D23 Expo. As after all, the Imagination Pavilion does fall within the newly branded World Celebration neighbourhood that is currently under construction. Although a few years back, the original rumour swirling around online was that Journey into Imagination was to be potentially rethemed to Inside Out. However, now that seems less likely. As if there was any doubt whatsoever about Figment's enduring popularity, then the popcorn bucket pandemonium witnessed earlier this year has surely shown Disney that this little purple dragon is as popular as ever with park goers. However, that isn't to say that there also isn't a way that they could blend together both original park characters like Figment with a modern IP integration like Inside Out, as I have previously armchair imagineered such a concept back in 2020 if you want to go check it out. But one thing is for certain, and that is that Disney knows that announcing a Journey into Imagination revamp project would be an easy, crowd-pleasing moment at the expo amongst the hardcore Disney fans, especially if it saw Dreamfinder and Figment reunited once again. Then, over at Animal Kingdom, late last year, I covered the demolition and removal of the Primeval Whirl spinning roller coaster and discussed what this could mean for not just the future of Dinorama, but also Dinoland USA as a whole. And well, I think it seems very likely that at D23 Expo we may get an official answer to that question, as the remaining carnival game stalls and the Triceratops spin flat ride are currently the only things left occupying this 2-acre plot of land. And considering that there is more than enough space to fit a show building the size of Remy's Ratatouille Adventure in that location, I think it's realistic that Disney will want to announce a new attraction that will add even more capacity to Animal Kingdom. Although this may not just be limited to Dino-Rama, as recently it has become more apparent that Dinosaur may also be heading for extinction, if a large-scale retheme of the area is then approved. Now of course the theme is still up for debate, as in the past rumours have suggested Zootopia, but I think that is less likely, as Shanghai are still yet to open their own version of the land, and usually Shanghai have exclusivity clauses over projects like this, like they did for Tron, with that being a 5-year exclusivity after its opening. So that leaves other rumoured contenders such as The Jungle Book, which could then expand Asia's footprint, Pixar's Up, which could see the area rethemed to South America, or maybe even Ice Age could be a possibility as well. But without knowing the designated theme that Imagineering have in mind, hopefully this now vacant space within Animal Kingdom will be a topic of interest at the expo. Now, despite Disney's Hollywood studios being the recipient of a lot of new additions over the past few D23 Expos, such as Toy Story Land, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and even the Galactic Star Cruiser, according to people familiar with the matter, executives still feel that the park needs one more big e-ticket attraction to round out its offerings. But I don't think it's likely that such an announcement is going to come at this year's expo, as supposedly the IP Disney had in mind was Indiana Jones. And so it would only be logical for Disney to gauge how the new Indiana Jones movie performs with audiences next year, before then pressing forward with a new attraction dedicated to the franchise. So for that reason, I think it's far more likely that Disney will announce a retheme of an existing attraction, and the one I've got in mind isn't Tower of Terror, but instead it seems possible that Rock 'n' Roller Coaster's time is finally up, as combining the fact that its counterpart in Paris has just reopened as Avengers Assemble Flight Force, coupled with Aerosmith's move to Universal Music Group at the beginning of this year, then potentially Disney may see less of a return in renewing the licensing deal with Aerosmith for the attraction, and may opt instead to retheme it to a more relevant Disney IP than that of a rock band that's popularity was at an all-time high in the 80s and 90s. And although I think that there's a good chance of this happening, I've got to admit it may not be top of Disney's agenda right now. And in that same vein, another retheme project that we could see announced, but admittedly is a bit of a long shot, is a replacement to Stitch's Great Escape at the Magic Kingdom, as it was in April 2020 that a permit was filed for the demolition on the interior of the attraction building, but since then we haven't heard anything more mentioned. So considering its prime location within Tomorrowland, it doesn't come as any great surprise to know that Disney has considered possible replacements for this space in the past. However, with Tiana's Bayou Adventure already scheduled for the Magic Kingdom, perhaps Disney will push back a replacement to Stitch's Great Escape until 2024. And then lastly, moving on over to Disneyland, it seems there is a very good chance that the long overdue Tomorrowland revamp may also get announced. As from what I've heard, one of the Imagineering creative leads from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Scott Trowbridge, is now spearheading the Tomorrowland project in Disneyland, which would make sense as to why Trowbridge recently tweeted out on July 13th a video of a former Fantasyland motorboat lagoon, as it is directly adjacent to Tomorrowland. However, this has clearly been a project of interest for Disney for quite some time, as before Joe Rohde departed Imagineering for Virgin Galactic, Rohde could be seen moving around pieces of the Imagineering Tomorrowland model in the Disney Plus docu-series The Imagineering Story in 2019. And so maybe this will be the year we see some overarching blue sky concept art for what Disney want to do to revitalise Disneyland's Tomorrowland. As after all, with Disneyland's 70th anniversary taking place in 2025, they could realistically begin to debut parts of this revamp in celebration of the anniversary of the park. Now, up until this point in the video, I've outlined announcement contenders based upon recent evidence. but there are a few projects that we've heard rumours about in the past which I didn't want to include as main predictions. As an example, there's also been discussion of a Coco rethemed to Grand Fiesta Tour at the Mexico Pavilion, and considering the monumental box office and cultural success of Black Panther, it is inevitable that Disney will eventually construct a Wakanda land at some point in the future. However, I have put the likelihood of any of these being announced much lower, only because there isn't recent evidence to support them. So, in summary, obviously not everything mentioned today will get announced at D23 Expo, but hopefully this video has given you some insight about what possibly could be announced using some old-fashioned logical deductions and practical reasoning, and I guess we'll find out what predictions were right and which ones were wrong in just over a month's time when D23 Expo takes place in September. But now it's over to you, the Waltineers, as I would like to know what are your predictions for what you think will be announced at D23 Expo and the reason why. And also in the next week or so I'm going to have a big wildcard prediction video come out, so keep your eyes peeled to the channel for that. And if you've enjoyed today's video, then give this video a massive thumbs up, share this video with a friend, and with all of that being said, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.